everybody. This is Marcus Amaker, your friendly neighborhood poet laureate and artist in residence here at the Gilliard Center. I'm here with Techa, who I've known for a few years, and I really wanted to connect with you for this show so we can talk about a whole bunch of things. I know you do a lot, but I know that I was really interested in talking to you about your work in the education system and all that. So just give a little bit of a background. I met you when I was doing a workshop at the North Charleston High School, and I went in there talking about hip hop, and I mentioned A Tribe Called Quest, and I noticed you sparked because I was like, oh, there's somebody else who's a fan of A Tribe
Yeah.
Called Quest. And it's funny for me to think about that now because a lot of students don't know Tribe. In my opinion, they are sort of like the Beatles of hip hop, or sort of like this Motown era where it was just classic hip hop. But anyway, we connected after that, and it's nice to be on stage with you here.
Thank you. And it's so good to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being
I
here.
just want to say that I'm honored to just sit with you and just to talk. And I know we've met each other and seen each other on different occasions, and we talked about this. So it's great to see that we're finally here and got a chance to get a chance to just talk. But I am an educator. I've been teaching for over 24 years. I want to say this is my
Mm.
25th. Sometimes I lose track, but I've been an educator with Charleston County School District for that long, and I love teaching. It's my passion, and it's my calling. Right now, I'm currently teaching at North Charleston High School under the wonderful principal, world renowned now, Henry Darby. He's
Mhm.
amazing and has done so much for our school to change the culture and everything. But I am passionate about helping educators in all facets, not only from the K through 12 level, but even college and beyond, just people that want to get into education and just showing them how to reclaim their passion as educators. I think that's a calling for me, being, one that has experience in teaching for as many years as I have, just to help educators stay in the field because we have so many teachers that are leaving the field. And now, with everything that's happening, it's so important for educators to keep that spark and to remember the why and to just be able to connect to themselves in order to connect with students and the communities that we serve.
Yeah, I think that mindfulness focus that you have, I think, is really important because it's always been something that I've thought about going to schools and wondering how are teachers taking care of themselves because there's so much put on teachers. It's like they are asked to be sort of punctual all the time, early hours, long days, don't get paid that much. Um, and they have to be sort of like babysitters for kids. And then I'm thinking, how do teachers take care of themselves? And I'm really glad that you focus on mindfulness. So can you talk a little bit about that, like what that means for you and why you're doing that work?
It's so important. I'm glad you asked me that question because in order to like fully bring yourself to whatever you do, you have to have a level of authenticity. And I think mindfulness brings that authenticity to the work that you do. And primarily in education, it's a vocation and it's a calling for a lot of us. And those of us that are in those nurturing positions and we do those kind of professions where we have to nurture people, it's so important that we give back to ourselves and nurture ourselves. And mindfulness is the pathway that I've found that can bring me that authenticity that I need to serve my students and to continue to replenish myself in the work that I do because it's so hard.
Hmm.
And you have to find the joy and you have to, keep that joy going because your outside work and your life reflects each other. What you do in the classroom, what you do outside, you bring your full self to what you do. So it's important that educators have to learn that because we don't. I didn't always know
Hmm.
what mindfulness is and how to, bring your full self and be authentic. We just give, 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 and
Hmm.
we never stop. And then we wake up one day and we have no more to give. So it's important that we continue to replenish. And you hear the buzzword self-care so much, but that's a real thing. I
Yeah.
mean, you have to care for yourself in order to care for others. That's my philosophy.
How do you personally care for yourself in moments where you are anticipating stress or moments where you are doing any sort of task? What do you do for self-care?
It's so many things, and that's a great question too. I wanted to go back to and just bring up that my friend and I, Jen Savage, started a podcast, and we devoted it to self care
Hmm.
for educators. It's a platform. It's a place where educators can come together and just connect with each other and just listen to Jen and I, who we've been teaching for a while,
Hmm.
and we could just like give what worked for us and just a safe space where they could like connect and listen to different techniques and what we bring as educators every day and how to care for ourselves, because that's so important. And some of the things that I do, I'm a meditation teacher here
Hmm.
locally with Still Soul Studio here in Charleston, and just having the time to breathe,
Yeah.
and remembering to breathe. I wear a pin on my lanyard at school and it has the word breathe on it. And
Mm.
when colleagues and other students see that, they know, okay, we have to remember that,
Hmm.
because so often we just like, we're busy, busy, busy. We're going through our day and we don't just take even a few moments just to center and reconnect, because it can get stressful at times. Don't
Hmm.
get me wrong. And I do experience stress, but I always have to remember I have a toolkit, I have techniques, I have contemplative practices that I go to, and that's what keeps me going and that's what
Hmm.
keeps me grounded. But what I want to do is to help other educators see that there's places you could go. There's
Hmm.
there's a wealth of just gems inside of ourselves that we can tap into, where we could like, okay, let me recenter. I can refocus. I can breathe for 5 minutes or 2 minutes or however long, and just like reconnect to the heart and what you do. It's so important.
Yeah. I wonder about that a lot with the world that we are in. It seems like it's a digital loop of information. We just keep on getting online and looking at the news and getting online and then reacting. And there just seems to be this big loop that we are all in. And I just hope that more people do mindfulness stuff, because it has been a beneficial thing for my life. But I think that a lot of people, well, not a lot, some people look at it as sort of, I don't know what the word is, but sort of like hippy dippy, or
Woo woo.
yeah, yeah, woo woo is woo woo
That's
is
the
a perfect
term,
word.
right?
Not that you have to talk to people who think that way, but if you were leading a TED talk on it, like just the benefits of mindfulness, and why is it not woo woo? Like, why is it really a more sort of grounded thing?
Yeah, I would just really approach it from a little bit of a science background and just
Mm.
show, what it does for our health. I mean, it lowers blood pressure, what it does for our well-being overall, our mental health, just the benefits. And I think when people see the benefits and they know that it's not a like a religious practice, it's secular, and it's something that everyone can access, because we all breathe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all
Hopefully.
can connect to the breath. I mean, it's something that we do involuntarily. And when they see, okay, I can just like close my eyes for a minute and just breathe, and just you see the processes that happen internally, where the breathing slows down, the heart rate goes down, and you just feel, the endorphins can kick in, and, all those feel good chemicals, the
Mm.
serotonin, all those levels just kind of just relax, and you just feel a sense of calm and a
Mm.
sense of ease. And when people feel that, they want more of it.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, that's nice. I can access this anytime. And they're
Mm.
really amazed that how good they feel. And that's what brings people back. And that's what takes people, deeper to want to get more into the practices and to
Yeah.
learn more. That's what did it for me,
Yeah.
because I'm like, I need this in my life in
Mm.
order to do all the things that I do. And my husband always jokes with me. He's like, I can't keep up with you. You're doing all these things. Like, what are you doing now? What Zoom call is that?
Mhm.
So I'm like, I am able to manage
Yeah.
all of the things because of my mindfulness practice, because of the different techniques that I've learned, and I'm still learning different things, but it's really beneficial. And I think when people see it and they wonder, and people always ask me like, wow, man, you're so cool. You're so like, they don't really know, but they're curious.
Mhm.
And then even students, like, wow, Miss Smalls-Brown, you don't get upset like other
Mhm.
teachers do, or, you don't yell at us. And I'm like, I don't yell, but because I know, okay, let's just take a minute. Let's just breathe.
Yeah.
And then, even my voice tonality, and being a meditation teacher, you learn how to calm down and
Yeah.
have that voice. And you just like, we can handle this. We can get through this.
Yeah.
We can get through this together. And it comes from the place of knowing those techniques and practicing them. It's a practice too,
Yeah. Right
because
on.
it's not automatic, and it's hard for some people. They find it difficult to, because of that loop, like you were talking about,
Mhm.
the constant loop of the news cycle and the next tweet, or what's going on Facebook or Instagram, or getting that text message. I encourage people to shut down their phones,
Mhm.
at least for a couple hours, or if not, if you can do it for like a day, just not pick up your phone. That's
Mhm.
very hard for us because we're so addicted to that,
Completely.
and getting, that rush that comes from the next bing or the next message, or, but you have to just learn, if you want to maintain balance in your life, you got to shut some of that down, because that just continues that loop, that chatter, that cycle that never stops. And it's hard when, you try to slow down,
Mhm.
because you're so used to being like on that hamster wheel and you're constantly
Oh
going.
yeah.
So
Completely.
you've got to practice it, and you have to be intentional about it and make the time. Like, I'm just going to shut it down for a little bit
Yeah.
and see.
I'm curious. How do you handle anger, and how do you handle anxiety as well? Because the reason I asked that is because I had a teacher who really taught me a lot about the best ways to confront that. Because in my younger years, I used to think, I'm like, okay, I don't have room for anger and blah blah blah. But you know what? Things are going to happen.
Hmm.
So I've found out my way of handling that. How do you handle it? Because it is a natural thing. So how do you handle, like, when somebody just makes you mad? Like, what happens to Tisha? Like,
It's
what do you do?
like, okay, I realize that anger, and I tell my students this, it's okay. It's a natural emotion. We all feel it, but it's a message. Okay, if we feel anger, there's something that triggered that.
Mhm.
So there's something, it's not just the anger itself, it's something that lies beneath that surface of the anger.
Yeah.
So I look deeply into it, like, okay, why is this affecting me in this way? And it's almost like a internal conversation that I have.
Mhm.
And I wonder, okay, let me see what caused this. And it's just like, it could be, like you said, the anxiety can bring on the anger,
Yeah.
and vice versa. Those things sometimes come hand in hand, but I get angry just like anyone else, but I know that it's a natural emotion. There are no bad emotions, and I just work out ways to settle
Yeah.
and take a step back, and don't allow it to consume me, and don't perseverate on it.
Mhm.
Like, don't constantly think about it, because our minds are wired to go to, things that make us upset, or we worry about things. And,
Mhm.
the anger just brings on so much, other things that come along with it. You start thinking about guilt, like, why do I feel this way? I shouldn't feel this way. But no, you feel that way for a reason. But it's what you do with that anger. That's what matters.
Yeah.
How you channel it. And I know
Right.
you probably heard that before.
Mhm.
Channel it into something positive, or, the way you reframe things to look at, a situation from a different perspective. And usually at times, if you become angry at something someone else does, that really doesn't have anything to do with you. It's the other person, and they're projecting that onto you.
Mm-hmm.
So you've allowed yourself to be open enough to receive that. But, when you can kind of feel it or see there's a potential for me to get angry, I step away. I'm like, okay, I don't need this right now.
Yeah.
And this is not going to serve my highest good for what I need to do. So it's best for me to just walk away from it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of what you said resonated with me, but what you mentioned about is what you do with it, I think is really important, because some people get angry and then they go out and then they drink all night, or some people get angry and then they go out and hit things or something. And there's just so many ways to channel that energy that you have. And yeah, everyone gets angry. Funny for me, it's listening to heavy metal music. Like if I'm angry at something, it's like crank up some old school like 80s like metal,
Really?
and then I get it out and I'm like, okay, cool,
Wow.
So yeah, there's so many different ways to handle it.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So what do you think the heavy metal like does? It's just like the loudness of it, or just the
It's
brashness of it?
all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all of that. And it's usually on a bike ride. I've got a speaker on the bike handle, and it like I bike really fast, and
Hmm.
and it's what I need to
Yeah.
get that energy out, and that can work for some people. That might not work for others. So it's really
True.
interesting to think about.
And that's something that, like, I go back to, you have to learn it. So it's so important. That's something you learned.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn, okay, how can I channel this anger in a way where I can like get rid of it and it won't like fester and turn into something else? Because if we don't address it in a healthy way,
Mm-hmm.
it'll turn into something totally negative that we'll end up regretting, or, doing something that we wish we hadn't done, but then things happen so quickly,
Yeah.
it's too late. So I think it's so important, and I teach my students that, and I want to teach colleagues and other adults and people in education too, because we get angry and we
Mm-hmm.
get upset, and it's what we do with it. So learning those different practices, and learning just, some people draw, or some people may journal, or go for a run, or, people figure out ways that, okay, I have to turn this into something else, because if I don't, it's going to get the best of me.
Yeah.
And that's so important.
Yeah.
But it's learned, and you can, find what works for you, but then if that no longer works, you have to almost find something else.
Mhm.
If the heavy metal music is like, okay, this ain't doing it
Yeah,
for
right.
me, I need to do
Heard
something
the
else.
song
So you
before,
have,
yeah.
you have to learn something else. So
Yeah.
you're always in a learning process with it, and to process those emotions.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think this is kind of a good segue to some of the stuff that you do with trauma and resiliency as well. Can you talk to me a little bit about that, like what you do?
It
that
all
work?
ties in, and I like to say all the things that I'm passionate about are aligned.
Mhm.
And that's where I find I'm able to do so many different things, because they're all aligned. They're all like part of the same quilt, so to speak. And,
Yeah.
there's just different squares, different colors, but they all mean similar or the same thing for me. And as far as trauma, same techniques. You have to address it, you have
Mhm.
to recognize it, and there's so many different levels of trauma. It's an event or an experience that someone has had that makes them unable to cope with the situation.
Yeah.
And they channel that in different ways, and it can sometimes consume you, but you also, again, you have to learn techniques. You have to learn how to process it, what it looks like when you're being triggered, certain people, or even hearing a sound, or even a smell could trigger,
Yeah.
so many things can bring that on and bring that memory back. But when you know it's coming, you're like, okay, I need to tap into one of my skills.
Yeah.
And again, they're learned. That's why the knowledge and the education is so important, because we don't get these things naturally. You know,
Mm-hmm.
things happen, unfortunate events happen to us, unfortunate things that we carry with us, but it's how you handle it
Mm-hmm.
and it's how you learn. So that's my passion. I want to bring those techniques and show people that there are different ways to handle it. There's so many positive ways that you can handle it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's unfortunate, but those things make us stronger. And I think about resilience, and I think about me as a historian. I used to teach African American history, and I'm really passionate about African American studies, African American history. Taught it for 10 years at West Ashley High. I taught a little bit at North Charleston High School and studied at the College of Charleston.
Yeah.
And I just see the resilience, and I look at my own experience as an African American woman of the resilience of black people
Mm-hmm.
and how we had no choice to be resilient in the face of all that. I think about my grandmother and my grandparents and just my family in general and our history in this nation. Resilience was a part of our DNA
Mm.
because we're
Has to be.
still here and we've gone through so many things and still managed to create beauty and see art and make change and just all the wonderful things that, you know, African American people bring to the world. And it's that resilience,
Yeah.
you know, that does it. And it's something that you really can't describe, but you know it's there because I think the need is there, and that's part of our survival.
Mm-hmm.
We have to create beauty. I have to be surrounded by art. I have to have music in my life. I have to connect with nature. And that's something else too. Our ancestors connected with the land and we were outside in the elements for, you know, hours on end and feeling the energy of the sun on our skin.
Yeah.
And that adds to that resilience. I feel it's like a part of us.
Yeah, it's impossible for us not to be connected to that, even if we don't necessarily, know like facts and all that stuff and all that. But it's like we are connected to what our ancestors have done for us and what they continue to keep doing for us because that stuff is passed down. So yeah, it's really an interesting thing to grow up and have that awareness of why we are all connected, why black folks are all connected is because we have that common thing of the reason why we came to this country, why we were brought to this country.
Right.
Um,
And our
it's really
ancestors
interesting.
back then, you know, they didn't have like all the buzzwords like we have now, like,
Yeah.
you know, trauma, and you're hearing
Yeah,
that so much, and
mindfulness and
mindfulness. They
yeah,
were just
just
like,
connect with nature.
you know,
Like this is
connected.
what we
Yeah.
do.
My
It's what we
grandmother
are.
just prayed, or my grandfather or great grandfather, and just like believed and trusted in their faith, and
Hmm.
you know, and that was being mindful.
Yeah,
That was all mindfulness, and
that
that
was
was
it.
all a part of the spiritual practices and all the things that kept you going, and having a meal with family and communing with people that you love, and you
Hmm.
know, just connecting with others. And we did that as
Yeah.
a means for survival
Mm.
and creating art, again, going back to that. And I know you and we can talk for hours about just music in general.
Hmm.
And I would love to one day be able to teach students and even adults or a course in connecting resilience to music
Mm.
and how music has like made resilience possible.
Yeah.
And there are certain songs that you go to, you
Yeah.
know, certain forms of music that you like, man, I just got to listen to this song. And
Hmm.
even students do that. They're like, they love music so much because it connects to a part of them
Yeah.
where you can't really express or how you feel verbally. You don't know how to verbalize it or put it into words, but you listen to that song and it says everything that you're feeling.
It's
And
true.
that's the power of music. And I really think that music has a lot to do with our resilience
Yeah.
in this country and in the world, just, you know, globally, and what music does just for everybody. You know, they say it's a universal language, and
Hmm.
it really is because it connects to a part of us that we don't know what that really is, but we know it is.
Yeah.
We know it exists, and it's beautiful.
I also love how subversive a lot of black music is too. When you think about early jazz, and by early I mean in the 1920s and 30s, and the stuff that they were singing about, but they put a layer of like a metaphor on top and then another metaphor. So when you listen to the song, it's a song that you can dance to, but actually the lyrics are about some really heavy and
Mhm.
truthful things.
Mhm.
It's really interesting to me to think about the ways that black musicians have figured out how to speak on the world and have healing through song.
Yes.
But also there's that level of, oh, hey, you could also like enjoy this and have it on in the background. But if you like sit and really listen to it and think about what they're saying, there's a lot of heaviness that's happening in a lot of these songs. So
So nuanced. You're right. And
Motown was perfect for that. There's
Motown.
so much.
So it's I know that could be just a whole conversation in
Yeah,
itself.
yeah, it's really
But you're
interesting.
right. The different layers and even like forms of gospel music
Mm-hmm.
and even jazz.
Oh,
I mean,
completely.
even jazz without words.
1000%.
You can just
Yeah.
feel that. Certain artists that I love to listen to. I've been listening to a lot of Yusef Lateef
Yeah,
lately
yeah.
and
Yes,
Pharaoh
that,
Sanders, kind of going back there and
yeah.
just
70s.
tapping into the meditative aspect of it because you can get lost in it and you feel their messages, but there are no words.
Yeah.
That's the fascinating thing
Yeah.
about jazz music or just music without words, that it can speak to you in a way where it's only speaking to you,
Mm-hmm.
and another person, you could hear it and it could say something else.
Yeah.
Like Alice Coltrane, I'm listening to
I
her a
love
lot.
Alice
It's
Coltrane.
just like
So
so
perfect.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, her the stuff that that has been released recently of the singing that she's done. She's done a lot of like chanting stuff, and it's
Okay.
just it's amazing. Yeah,
I
some of
have to
that.
check that out. I
Yeah,
had to check it out.
there's a
Okay.
new album that was recorded in the 80s. Taraya sings, and it's her and organ singing, and it's
Whoa.
fantastic. It's really
Okay.
great. Yeah.
Well, that's going to be on the list because
Yeah.
Journey to Satchitananda
Yeah,
has
it's
been
awesome.
like constant, and I return back to that. But it's interesting too about like how we return to certain music,
Hmm.
throughout our lives. I can remember listening to like I said, Yusuf Lateef or, you know, earlier jazz or more like race kind of music, and then returning to that years later. I mean, our tastes change and what we need changes, but somehow certain music like Coltrane, you never leave it.
Hmm.
You never, don't think about it. Or
Yeah.
when you hear acknowledgement from a love
Oh
supreme,
yeah.
you
Yeah,
just
from
like
John.
know.
Yeah,
It's
right on.
like, okay, I need that, and
Yeah.
it's all, it's always there. That's amazing.
Hmm. This is a bad segue, but I wanted to ask you this before we wrap this up. Um, so I visit a lot of schools, and it's interesting for me to see the different makeup of schools, like the racial makeup of schools. What are your thoughts about North Charleston High? It's a beautiful school, and I live in that hood, and there's a lot of white families that live in that hood. But then the school is what is the percentage of black students at the school?
It's it's mixed, and I would say this year there is more diverse than I've seen it
Okay.
in years. It's
Yeah.
a large African American population, Latinx population, but I've been
Okay.
seeing more white students this year.
Okay.
So
Cool.
it's not truly balanced, with a cultural makeup,
Mhm.
but it's more diverse than I've seen it.
Okay.
A lot of African American students, but the beauty of North Charleston High School is that I've seen it change over the years. I taught there for 12 years
Hmm.
back in like the late 90s to like 2010, 2006. And I saw the neighborhood change. I've been in Park Circle for quite some time
Mhm.
and seen the turn of the neighborhood and how it's been gentrified.
Yeah.
And the makeup of the school does not reflect the neighborhood that it's in, but at the same time, the neighborhood is very welcoming to the school. The neighborhood has really helped the school community, and we're glad that the neighborhood's there. They're glad that we're there. So I think North Charleston High School being where it is just adds to the beauty of the diversity of the neighborhood.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's a school where there are children, students coming from different places, but they're in a place where it's changing, and Park Circle's progressive. I feel that's what one of the things I love about
I
the
think so
neighborhood,
too.
how progressive it
I think
is.
so too.
And the school, like I said, we do so much for the community. They do a lot for us. So it's a great partnership, and a lot of the businesses in the area have partnered with the school. It's just a great relationship. It's a community feel,
Yeah.
and I really like that.
It's perfect.
And what's happening there, and it's wonderful kids and so creative. And you work with us,
Yeah, I love
and
that school.
the work we did with the Gibbs and
Yeah.
the Studio Museum in Harlem, and
Hmm.
just all the different programs that they have. And it's really amazing how it's transformed and changed and morphed with the times.
Hmm. Yeah. So, as we wrap up here, last thing I want to ask you is, I've asked this of all of my guests, but what is your guilty pleasure? What is something that will not be on the bio? You know, you don't really talk about in front of folks, but just what is your guilty pleasure, and whatever that means for you, you can answer that however you want to answer it.
I don't know if it's guilty or not. It's just I just like to sit outside and be quiet. I
Yeah,
mean, it's just
cool.
part, and it's something
It's all
that
good.
you crave and you look forward to it. My husband built me a Zen garden in the
Oh,
backyard,
word. Yeah.
and they're surrounded by its plants and all the things I love. There's a fountain,
Hmm.
and I can sit and listen to the sound of the water. I can sit out there at night and just be.
That's awesome.
So I would say that's a guilty pleasure, with no phone, just in silence and listening to the birds. Or we have a lot of butterflies, and just sitting.
That is
I just
great.
love it. I love it.
That is great. I
Hmm.
might show up in your garden one day because
You
I live.
should.
Yeah, yeah. I live near there. So, well, yeah. Thank you for being here. Is there anything else you want to speak on or talk about, or anything that's coming up for you? Or
So much is coming up. No, I just want to continue the work of helping educators and learning more about mindfulness practices, being a leader in my field. I feel that I've been chosen to be a leader. I'm working on my PhD
mm,
right now
wow.
in leadership and change
Okay,
at
that's awesome.
Antioch University. And I chose Antioch because of its social justice platform and the history of the school,
Hmm.
started by an abolitionist in Yellow Springs,
Beautiful.
Ohio. It's
Yeah,
a fascinating program, and I just hope to continue to expand and be a leader in my field and be a change agent.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we will put a link to your podcast.
Okay. Namas Teach,
Yeah. Okay. That is awesome.
to take on
Yeah,
Namaste.
namaste.
Yeah.
Yeah. We will, yeah, put that in the video, and hopefully you all follow and connect. Yeah, thank you for the work that you do. I think
Thank
it's
you.
really important. So,
Thank you, Marcus.
all right, and thank you all for being here for another edition of Raising the Volume. We'll see you next time.